Oviedo tells the story that because Catalina or ZAMEACA really loved Miguel Diaz, she asked him to stay. But he felt obligated that he needed to return to La Isabela, even though months had passed. He wanted to return home as well. It seems like he told her that he really cared for these people in La Isabela, even though he had run away from it after trying to stab someone there. And she begged him to stay and told him, you know what? If these people mean so much to you, bring them here. Oviedo writes the following: Como aquella india principal le quiso bien, trátole como amigo, que tenía parte en ella, por su respeto a los demás, diole noticia de las minas, que están a 7 leguas de esta ciudad. Rogóle que hiciese que los cristianos que estaban en la Isabela, que él mucho quisiese, los llamase se viniesen a esta tierra tan fértil y hermosa, y que ella los sostendría y les diera lo que necesitaran. La cacica ZAMEACA revealed to them where there were mines of gold in las minas de Taina. It is said that she did this out of love, because she wanted Miguel Diaz to stay with her. Miguel Diaz, now with this information, believed that he would be pardoned. He wouldn't have to pay for the life he had taken. Las Minas de Taina would be his ticket out of punishment. Oviedo writes that Miguel Diaz had fallen in love with La Cacica, so he wanted to please her, but he also wanted to please his crewmates back in La Isabela, especially Bartholomew. So he made it clear that he still wanted to go back to La Isabela even though things had happened there. But we can also imagine that they both spent many days and many nights together under the Caribbean sky, talking as best they could, even though they didn't speak the same language. We can conclude, too, that ZAMEACA probably developed a deep love for Miguel Diaz. She also probably thought that he would become part of the tribe. It was very customary for them to accept foreigners, but usually they would adopt the Taino culture. So they were used to people coming onto the island, but they were also used to people integrating into their culture, which was the case of Caunabo. She probably also concluded that they weren't going back home, so she made arrangements for him. And she allowed some of her own indigenous subjects to bring Miguel Diaz and his friends back to La Isabela. As she was arranging these indigenous guides for him, we can imagine that they would sit in the hamacas, lay in them as they planned a future. We don't have any writings of Miguel Diaz speaking about La Cacica. We have other writings from him talking about different things, but we know that humans are still human, no matter the time or the era. So Miguel Diaz and the Indian guides made their way back into the jungle and back to La Isabel. They didn't go in right away, though. Miguel believed he needed some information first before he could go in. Oviedo says, secretamente tuvo manera de hablar con algunos amigos suyos. Supo que aquel hombre que había herido estaba sano. Miguel Diaz probably felt some sort of relief to realize that the guy he had attempted to unalive had survived. So now he knew that the punishment he feared would no longer apply to him. So now he was in the green. He was safe. So then he quickly made arrangements to speak with Bartholomew and let him know that he had news. He quickly shared with him his ideas and about the river he had seen, the Rio Osama, the port, and most important of all, Las Minas de Taina. From what Oviedo writes, Bartholomew was excited by the news, and he quickly forgave Miguel Diaz. But he had one condition. He had to become friends again with the man he had tried to unalive. So as he listened to Miguel, he liked what he heard, but then he determined that he needed to see these things for himself. He wasn't just going to take his word for it. So Bartholomew, Miguel, and a couple of others made their way back to El Yucayeque de la Cacica, ZAMEACA. Oviedo says that Bartholomew was put into a canoe in el río Sama, and that he navigated it towards el Yucayeque de la CACICA. He gave a cruise around the port and saw that the dimensions were excellent, and it could easily accommodate Spanish ships. He lastly wanted to check one more thing, Las Minas de Jaén. Oviedo writes that he stayed there for 2 days at this gold mine, and he picked up all the gold he could find. Dice Oviedo, quedó muy satisfecho y tan alegre como era razón. He ended up not really going directly to La Yucayeque or El Yucayeque de la CACICA, but instead quickly returned after visiting the gold mines to La Isabela. And Oviedo explains how his return was received. He says, volvió a la Isabela y dio muy grande placer a los españoles todos. He continues saying, y dio luego orden, como toda la gente viniese con él por tierra a este asiento, y mandó a traer por la mar lo que allá tenían los cristianos en 2 carabelas o en 2 ships que tenía, y llegó a este puerto según algunos dicen domingo, día del glorioso Santo Domingo, 5 días de agosto del año 1494. Many historians believe that Oviedo got the date wrong because he got many dates wrong. However, if we go by the timeline that we later hear from Miguel Diaz, it does seem that this could be possible. However, they're still unsure.